Welcome to the JD Bunkis podcast. Only 3 of 8 teams in the Atlantic have positive goal differentials, and 2 of them play each other tonight. That's the Toronto Maple Leafs and the Tampa Bay Lightning. This is the part that made all the hand-wringing about the Leafs harder to do. Did they look terrible? Absolutely they did. Have they turned a corner? I think so. But the rest of the division essentially did nothing with it. Every time you would try to get mad about the Leafs, you had to go, yes, they look terrible. Yes, the defense is awful. Yeah, they're getting killed in the shot totals. And yeah, they weren't getting a save before Joe Woll showed up. No, guys aren't healthy, blah, blah, blah. But every time you'd look at the standings, you'd go, oh, well, how panicked can you be about missing the playoffs when the rest of the division stinks? The Eastern Conference is just bad. So tonight, another really good test for them. This has been, I think, a pretty impressive stretch. Carolina was a great win. I think they looked better against Montreal, but sucks to lose that one. Obviously, beating Florida still matters. I don't care how beat up Florida is. But tonight, Tampa hot, Tampa at the top of the standings. It's pretty good. But yeah, 3 teams with a positive goal differential in your whole division. You know what they are? You're like, the Leafs have a positive goal differential? Yeah, +2. Boston, +2. That's it. That's the Atlantic for you this season. What a division. What a division. 2 of the teams combining for a +4 goal differential, and it's December 8th today. So good stuff for them. The Kansas City Chiefs are dead. We just watched the death of a dynasty. There's nothing I can't stand more than dynasty debate. Is a team a dynasty or not? Because I think you should just know it. Like, I think that if you're a dynasty, that people look at it and they know it. And that everybody trying to parse through it like they did with the Patriots for a while, it's annoying. Golden State Warriors, they were a dynasty. Comparing them to teams from bygone eras that competed against far fewer teams with completely different parameters is insane to me. If they are the memorable team that appeared in multiple finals and had multiple wins over a long stretch of time, that ma'am, is a dynasty. That's what the Chiefs were. They went to 5 of 6 Super Bowls. We were talking about Patrick Mahomes as in terms of whether or not he could be the greatest of all time as he went up against the greatest of all time. We've done this with Travis Kelce. Is he the greatest tight end of all time? No, he's not. I don't even think he's personally in the top 4. But we've had the conversation. We've definitely talked about it. Andy Reid. He started to get, hey, is this one of the greatest coaches of all time? They've had great defenses. They've had great wins. They've dominated the rest of the AFC to the point where a good team like the Buffalo Bills tried to design their entire group around beating the Chiefs. Every offseason was, how do you beat the Chiefs? How do you get that one extra pass rusher? They were a dynasty, and it's over now. And I'm both not surprised and surprised by it because I've been saying it all year long that this looked different and that some of these losses were far more severe than what had been in years past. And they had the one win right before the Cowboys game where they came back against the Colts. And Brady and I were discussing it, and he felt like this was a turning point moment for that. And I went, I don't know. This feels more about the Colts being crap than it did about Kansas City just grabbing a team by the throat and doing their thing. But who among us didn't think that when Kansas City got the ball back twice with an opportunity to go down the field and tie it, that they weren't going to be able to accomplish that? But what we saw, to me, was the 3 faces of the team, because there's 4 right now. There's still Chris Jones, and he was spectacular. And, like, that's about as good as you'll ever see a D lineman play, is what he did in the second half of that football game. He changed the tide of the game. He basically tried to take over and keep the Chiefs' playoff hopes alive. So I don't want to discount him in this. But the Chiefs are, as good as they have been defensively and as many conversations as we've had during their run of, hey, don't underrate the defense and Spagnola and all of this, let's be honest. This is an offensive football team. This is an Andy Reid football team with Patrick Mahomes and Travis Kelce. At one point, they had Tyreek Hill. They have been an offensive identity team. The reason that you feared the Chiefs was not because the defense would stop you or that they would win the game for you. It's that if you gave Mahomes the ball and he needed to go down the field just to win it or tie it, you were dead. The last 5 years, it has been, the Chiefs are down in the fourth quarter. What can we get those odds at? What can we grab this live bet on? And last night, you saw the three identity offensive pieces of the Kansas City Chiefs all fail spectacularly. Andy Reid, that decision to go for it on his 35-yard line on 4th and 1. A 4th and a long one. That was right in front of Andy Reid. Patrick Mahomes picks up about 8.5 yards with his legs. And instead of Andy Reid just doing the right thing, which was punt, and let his defense continue to dominate, the momentum had completely swung to the Kansas City Chiefs. He decides to go for it with an offense that had basically done nothing all game against the NFL's best defense. Turned out to be nothing. Patrick Mahomes, I think he played better than the numbers. He ends up with a 19 passer rating. Obviously, a bunch of drops, critical drops. Rashee Rice with a critical drop. Kareem Hunt with a critical drop. Travis Kelce with multiple critical drops, including the one that seals the game. But let's not kid ourselves. I'm not going to pretend like Mahomes has been amazing this year. There's all this like nerd numbers out there about Mahomes being like playing his best football of his career. That doesn't match the eye test with me. Sorry. Yesterday, their offensive line was beat up. They start the game losing their left tackle. I didn't feel like it was a huge protection issue. This didn't feel like a Justin Herbert game where everybody's just free-flowing at the quarterback. If anything, I think C.J. Stroud absolutely outplayed him the way that he handled some of the pressures. And then Travis Kelce just washed up, period. It's over. Like, you can come back and do another tour of duty, I guess. I have Travis Kelce in fantasy. It's like, I'm not leaning on him every week. And when he dropped that football, I wasn't overly shocked. I didn't go like, oh, wow, I cannot believe it. He's just not the same guy. I think he had 2 targets before he even before those first 2 drives. So, yeah, the 3 pieces. I have the most faith in Mahomes rebounding. I do. I think that he's still going to be one of the game's best quarterbacks. I'm certainly not going to do anything like hot takey, like, I don't think Patrick Mahomes is very good. Like, no, he's still one of the best quarterbacks in the NFL. And I think that overall, again, he's playing fine. But I just don't see him dominating in a way that Josh Allen does right now. I don't even see him playing the way that Joe Burrow is playing right now. So, yeah, it's over. I'm shocked it's over, but the Chiefs are dead, and now we're going to see how they pivot out of this and how quickly they can turn this around or whether or not the window is completely shut. Brady Quinn, our Monday Morning Insider, NFL QB, and, of course, Fox Sports. He joins me now. Of course, this is a day where we don't have as much time, but we got to start with Notre Dame. Like, your boys got left out of the college football playoffs, and yeah, I liked your reaction to it. I think that was the right reaction. But yeah, how are you feeling after a night's sleep?
Yeah, look, it's obviously a tough conversation for Notre Dame fans. I think for me, a lot of people make this more about ND pitted against Miami because the head-to-head. And I've always said all along, like the games matter. And Miami always should have been ranked ahead of Notre Dame since they had played week one. And that was part of the issue with the process is that didn't make any sense when both teams, at least just a couple weeks ago, are sitting there at 10-2 and they don't play any more games, and you still had Notre Dame ahead of Miami, and you wait till the last ranking of the season to leapfrog them. That means this is more about TV theatrics for ESPN than anything else. And I do think there's a case to be made, not just for Notre Dame, but even BYU versus a team like Alabama that absolutely laid an egg in the SEC championship game. And I understand there's a precedence there that they don't want to penalize teams for playing in that game.
Mhm.
But the truth of the matter is you don't need to win your conference in order to win a national championship. We don't have to look any further back than last year's semifinals. All 4 teams, none of them won their conference. The team that won the national championship didn't even play for their conference championship. It is a flawed process. We should probably go back to the BCS ranking system, which incorporated the AP, the coaches poll, as well as some of the computer rankings. And I think it'd be a more fair way of constructing how we get to the 12 teams that play off for it. Now, is it the 12 best teams? Of course not. Now, when you have Tulane or James Madison in, but we're trying to be inclusive. And that's ultimately what this really comes down to. It's very unlike the NFL, where we have their Super Bowl champion, the best in the NFL. We don't necessarily have all the best teams playing off once it turns to playoff time. A lot of politicking, a lot of inequities with the way college football goes about scheduling. So that's part of the thing that needs to be cleaned up. But it doesn't feel like anyone in the college football world wants to get together, wants to have an honest conversation about how we can make this whole thing work together in unison. And people keep making it about conferences. Conference championship games are probably going to go away.
Mhm.
And so for Notre Dame specifically, if conference championship games go away, but yet they're still able to create a schedule that's one of the more difficult in college football. Why do they need to join a conference? Like, why do teams or why do people keep throwing this out there? They need to join a conference. Well, you're basically we're almost doing away with the I would say the need to even have a conference championship game, since it doesn't hold as much weight as it once used to in regards to the playoff system.
Well, I think one point that you made that I saw on social that I totally agree with is that bowl games are going the way of the dodo, right? That we're already seeing the game's best players step out of playing these. They don't want to impact their draft stock. They don't want to get hurt. They know it's a useless game. But now Notre Dame pulls out of this and says, like, yeah, we're not going to play a bowl game. And yeah, there's going to be obviously like it's the internet, so you're going to get dissenting opinions. But I don't think that this is like if this would have happened, say, 10 years ago, right? People would have been
Yeah.
apoplectic about this. And it would have been universally viewed as what the hell is Notre Dame doing? The fact that we're even at a point where I would say, but like this is me anecdotally, 60-40 people saying, yeah, I don't really care that Notre Dame's not playing in this bowl game. That kind of tells me that this is over now, that we're going to be done with a lot of these bowl games. This isn't going to happen moving forward.
So the risk reward is the first conversation you have to have about it. You
Right.
mentioned that with athletes. A lot of people go back to the Jalen Smith game. Jalen Smith, who for people who don't know, obviously was a Pro Bowler in the NFL, but probably would have been a top 5 pick when he was coming out. He instead slid to the second round because of a terrible injury he sustained versus Ohio State in the Fiesta Bowl. So that's one example of many of obviously exhibition games where neither team was playing for the national championship at that point.
Mhm.
And unfortunately, his draft stock and his ability to ultimately be the player who was going to be in the NFL was taken away from him. So there's always going to be that conversation about risk reward. And I think the reward is, hey, you get to have a nice bowl experience, you get additional practices and development. That oftentimes though can just be pushed to the spring. And it's one of the reasons why we have spring practice and you have a spring game, which has even been kind of taken away as well at the college football level. Again, out of risk for a number of things, injuries, but also on top of that, players leaving in the portal. Now the portal window has changed, so I'm sure that thought has changed. Spring games might come back, but there's two other things I think you have to acknowledge is who do these exhibition games benefit? It really only benefits everyone outside of the players.
Mhm.
The players, when they sign up to go play for that school, they want to go play, get an education, and try to win a national championship. Once that is eliminated from the ability to do so, then you have to ask yourself, well, how is this helping me? If you're sitting there saying that it's just purely about, oh, it's going to help them with X amount of more practices and another game, to play in, sure. But again, we have that in the spring. And as a former student athlete and professional athlete, I'm never going to just take a complete break from continuing to improve or put together 7-on-7 practices or go throw routes or do all of the things that we need to do to keep building as a player during my time while I'm a player. So that doesn't stop just because you don't have organized practices with coaches. Players still bring guys together all the time in the offseason to go through routes, to go through passing, etc. So the risk reward to me is one portion of it. The idea that this game needs to be played for the future of the team and the future players, it really only benefits the sponsors and really ESPN, who's created this bowl season that now when you really look at it, you're like, it doesn't really hold up to what the college football playoff is. Also an ESPN creation, and credit to them for doing so. But now you hear most people who are attacking it being from that standpoint of like, well, what are we going to do? We just lost a lot of content if we don't have big brands playing in these games. And that's the truth. So that's one side of it. And I think for Notre Dame and a lot of other teams out there, they're not the only team opting out of this, but the calendar, it's a really tough time of year if you really think about what it's about. When I got to Notre Dame, it was all about playing for a national championship. Once that was eliminated, when we played during the BCS era, if you made the BCS, you went. But otherwise, like we played in a bowl game my sophomore year, we had to vote as a team. It was 60-40, JD. And I look back on that experience thinking our coach was fired. Almost half the team didn't want to even go.
Yeah.
So did anyone take that thing seriously? Probably not. And so you start looking at like a window into, well, why is Notre Dame? We don't have a conference. Like, so they're solely focused on trying to go win a national championship. Once that's not there, you're now looking at the college football calendar. We just had an early signing day period for kids in high school. The transfer portal window opens after the beginning of the year. So if you're the staff, there's no scouting department. It's the staff that's evaluating the next players coming from the portal or the next recruiting class that they're looking at. Wouldn't you want them focusing on that? Wouldn't you want them focusing on the players who are draft eligible, but may be able to come back and trying to retain those guys, or retention on your roster from guys leaving that you really value on your roster? All that's going on right now with the coaching staff and with some of these players. And there's agents involved in the process. A lot of these agents don't want these players playing in these exhibition games. So it's not like the argument or discussion we used to have 10, 20 years ago. It's a completely different landscape in regards to the exhibition games, everything outside of playing for a national championship.
So I think eventually the college football playoffs expand. Like I just do
It
because of,
should.
well, also what you're like these teams, these huge brands being left on the outside and then opting out of bowl games, they're not gonna want to lose that revenue. And so eventually they're gonna say there's a business case to be made for expanding the playoffs and making sure that this happens. But you mentioned that the way there's no governing body here, right? There's nobody that's in charge of this. There's no commissioner that's looking at this stuff. And based on the last, I would say, 4 or 5 years of college football, the way that it's been run, it's hard to feel any optimism of everybody getting on the same page. Like it feels like what happened with boxing, right? Where you're just like, oh, well, it just ended up dissipating this way. And of course, it's going to end up staying more popular because of the fan bases. But yeah, what is your level? Like, do you even think that anyone's bothered by this? Like, if you're ESPN, I think outside of losing the bowl game, you're kind of fine with it. You've generated enough conversation around this that we're leading you and I with this conversation over the end of the Chiefs dynasty. Like this is kind of working from the optic standpoint where sports are looking for this added layer of drama that sucks in people that are on the peripheries.
Well, and that's why I think if you look at ESPN, they're trying to kind of have their cake and eat it too for this reason.
Mm-hmm.
They know that conversation is going to be perpetuated whether Notre Dame's in or they're not. Now, the reason why I think they've tried to protect their assets, which is the SEC and the ACC. Those are the two conferences that they solely distribute content for or their games for. Obviously, they wanted to protect Bama. Each team being in the playoff gets additional revenue that they then take back to their conference. It gives them another chance to get the SEC back on top of the college football world. That's part of the problem is when you sit back and look at conference championship weekend, the biggest game of the weekend was Ohio State, Indiana, number one, number two, undefeated. Haven't seen it since 17 years ago, 16 years ago in the SEC.
Yeah.
And so that's the times are changing, and their assets, mostly focusing on the SEC, haven't been at the top of the college football world. So they're doing the best they can to protect that. And you can call it a conspiracy theory all you want, but I think it's business. It is what it is. It's about money. And so to make sure Bama's in, to make sure Miami's in, which allows them to have an ACC team, and we can talk for an hour about the ACC and their tie-breaking criteria, which allowed Duke and UVA to play off for their conference championship. And once Duke wins, now you're not going to have the ACC champ a part of the playoff. That's all on Jim Phillips and the rest of those of the ACC, not realizing that, hey, maybe we should adopt a format where like head-to-head matters, but then the next thing might be where these teams are ranked in the college football playoff rankings, so that we make sure the winner of this game gets catapulted up into the playoff instead of a team winning the conference championship that's an afterthought in Duke. So there's a lot of reasons why I think you look at ESPN, which is, owned the college football playoff, has, moved Oklahoma and Texas into the SEC, which started really the conference realignment. They've been the puppet master behind all of this. And to their credit, I think they've done an incredible job of highlighting college football. But now it's become so much about business and kind of the greed to protect what's theirs that it makes it really hard to have that conversation between all parties that want the best for the sport.
So the Chiefs lose yesterday. And now they're not mathematically eliminated from the playoffs, but they need to win out and a tremendous amount of help above them in order to even make it. Like a lot of help above them. And yeah, the Colts lose Daniel Jones, so that changes things. But yeah, you lost that game to Houston, who is now, I think, 2 games ahead of you with the tiebreaker. Where do you most assign the blame pie for what has happened with the Chiefs?
It's hard when you're a team that's been as successful as they are. Like, you're going to lose pieces, not only on your roster, but in the front office, on your coaching staff. And you can point to whoever you want to that's left and what they've done somewhere else. But I look at what's around Patrick Mahomes,
Mhm.
and you look at some of the drops in last night's game, and Travis Kelsey, we saw at the end of last year, he's getting up there in age.
Mhm.
He's a first ballot Hall of Famer, but Father Time gets the best of all of us, and he's not the same player he once was. And I feel like this offense, the way they've maybe been stubborn about just adapting to what probably needs to happen. They never truly addressed the running back position. I mean, obviously, their offensive line was banged up, so that might have played a role just in this specific game. But I think when you look at the evolution of their offense, they kind of needed to get back to a reality check of we're not going to be able to win by just throwing chunks down the field. Tyreek Hill's not here anymore, and no one's replacing him. I don't care if it's Xavier Worthy or Hollywood Brown or whatever other guy you draft that runs a really fast 40. Not the same player. That's just the reality of it. So if you got an aging Travis Kelsey, a lack of a run game, and you really haven't like addressed the position quite as much, and then you throw into that like a no true number one, like you mentioned, I heard in the opening portion of the today's show, you mentioned Joe Burrow. Well, you got Jamar Chase and T. Higgins.
Yeah.
Like if Patrick Mahomes has Jamar Chase and T. Higgins, we're not having this conversation about where this team's at. I would imagine they'd be 2-3 wins better right now. That's just how I feel, but I still feel like Patrick Mahomes has it. I just feel like the way they're trying to operate this offense, there's an element now of like desperation because they have to be given the circumstances of the record, but also with where this offense is at. Like they're not an overly effective running the team football. They're not balanced in that way.
Mhm.
So if you're a defense, you're like, yeah, I can let my edge rushers for the most part be on full tilt because there's nothing I have to respect if he tries to hand the football off. They don't have a game breaker in the backfield. There's no one that makes me feel like I need to respect that. So I can, more focus on doubling Travis Kelsey or eliminating big plays with some of our coverage on the back end and how we're trying to impact Patrick Mahomes every play, not just the entire offense. So the roster construction, I think, is something that's flown under the radar, and they've been able to overcome because of how good Mahomes is. But also, even you talked about the decision by Andy Reid, that felt a little bit like a desperate decision because that's unfortunate where the Chiefs are now in this season.
Yeah, it felt desperate, but it was also really stupid in the moment. That defense was absolutely dominating, and they had
Right.
all the momentum in the world. And the game to me felt very much like, okay, Kansas City, you're just buying time for your offense to figure out one drive because as of this moment, Houston pinned and having to go down the field over and over and over again seemed like a complete non-starter. And at least Kansas City was starting to move the ball and create some positive momentum on offense. And Reed making that
I,
choice, I thought that was an absolute choke. Like that was just a pure, no doubt about it, choke.
So this is the question I was going to ask you too, in regards to like you look how many offensive line were out for Kansas City. It's already a
Mhm.
tough matchup with that defensive front anyway.
Yep.
And so these are part of the conversations that I like to have with people who are really hard leaning into analytics. I don't think you are like that, but there are people out there who are, where they're like, well, that's the situation. That's what the book says. You got to go for it. It's like, well, hold on. If we had a healthy offensive line, maybe it feels like we've got a greater opportunity to execute any play. Like forget like what play call you actually made,
Mhm.
but any play. And then you have to take into account like who are we going up against? Like this is arguably the best defensive front or one of the best fronts in the NFL. So with a bunch of backups, is this the decision we want to make and like live or die by this? Where if we don't get it, it's ball game. Probably not the time to do it. So I think from an analytics standpoint, there's always a discussion to be had, but what should trump that is the matchups. And I think in this particular one, it didn't make any sense in this game.
So I thought they were just trying to draw him offside. That was going to be the play. That they were going to do a hard count and they were going to end up punting the ball or take the penalty and punt the ball. I did wonder. There's like a guy on Texas. I don't know who it was, but it's one of their D linemen. He kind of trips and falls forward right before the ball is snapped. And I wonder if Mahomes, being like having the power that he has in that offense, that was just supposed to be a hard count to draw him offside. And then he saw how scrambled they looked with that fall, that he just decided to snap the ball and that maybe he even caught his team off guard.
Yeah, typically it's going to be a look, and or if you try to get a free play out of it.
Yeah.
So there's a number of ways you approach it, but any fourth down, if you're 4th and 5 or less, you're usually implementing some sort of double cadence, some sort of hard count. So that's going to come standard, whether you're going to try to snap the football or not, obviously. But even if you are snapping it, you're looking for it. Oftentimes in the offenses too, you're going to have some sort of code word that may trigger based on the look or may trigger based on For example, them moving or doing something that you feel like you've got a beat on them or an edge on them. So it all depends on the system, but it kind of felt like to me like maybe they thought they could get it. Which, by the way, you kind of got to trust Patrick Mahomes with some of his decisions based on his track record. If it was an Andy Reid decision, it's worth kind of looking at. But Mahomes has proved himself time and time again to be able to make a play at times or catch teams off guard and get that free play. And there's also the risk reward of that. Sometimes it doesn't work out. Sometimes the officials don't see it the exact same way, where someone ends up, being able to get back in time before the snap, and you don't get the free play that you think you're getting.
Yeah. Okay. So huge comeback for the Bills. And I think a really encouraging game overall for the Bengals, like awful turnover there. But I've been looking for toughness from the Bills all season long. Like it has felt like, hey, they're not tough enough on the defensive side of the football. Like teams run up the middle on them routinely. That without Josh Allen running the football, they don't feel tough enough. The last couple of weeks, these have been very tough victories for them. Really impressive victories for them. And now you look at Allen's record at home during like basically December onwards at Orchard Park. And you look, or now I'm kind of looking at them a little bit differently from this win. I wonder if you are too.
Without a doubt, like this win to me and watching it kind of made me feel like if not this year, then when? You don't have to worry about the boogeyman you've had to face in the Kansas City Chiefs. They're not going to be in the playoffs,
Mm-hmm.
or most likely not. So this is your path, and this is going to be the opportunity. You don't have to worry about playing the Bengals again. They're not going to be there. When you start really thinking about outside of, within your division and looking at New England and how good that team is,
Mm-hmm.
but when you get in the playoffs, you're most likely going to be the most experienced team in there and the toughest team that no one wants to face. So to me, their ability to find ways of winning of late, I think the ability to get James Cook going in the running game too, to try to provide that balance, makes me so much more optimistic about what a lot of people probably felt coming into the season is the Bills should be one of those favorites. And I think they're kind of back, playing to that standard now.
Yeah, I agree. Brady Quinn, our Monday Morning Insider, NFL on Fox and former NFL QB. Thanks for making time, buddy. I appreciate it.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
See you, buddy. This feels like so much pressure on the Buffalo Bills. Every time I have Brandon in, I go, this has to be your year. This kind of has to be your year. Every text I have with Helwani, this has to be your year. Every single Bills fan that I talk to right now, they don't want to have the conversation because deep down they know it. They're going to enter the postseason with the best quarterback on the board. That's just not going to be up for dispute. Lamar Jackson has not been the same guy this year, and I'm going to talk about them for a second here. But your big hurdle is Drake May and the New England Patriots? That's your big hurdle? You better I don't even care if they win. Like obviously they should. They should care deeply about having home field advantage throughout the postseason, especially the way that they play at home and Allen's record there. But if you get into the playoffs and it's his first go at this and you lose to the Patriots now, that's devastating. Bo Nix? The Denver Broncos? No, that's not acceptable. It was acceptable to lose to Patrick Mahomes in his prime, him going down the field on you with whatever, 30 seconds left in a ball game. The field right now in the AFC, I can't believe that there's a genuine scenario where one of the four quarterbacks that we view as the best in the NFL, all being in the AFC, that the Bills might catch a break where their guy is the only one in. That Lamar is out, that Mahomes is out, and that Burrow is out. And I'll say this, watching that Bengals team, yeah, their defense is still no good. Yeah, T. Higgins, amazing. Jamar Chase, amazing. I feel good about them moving into next season based on where those other two teams are at. Like, I don't know what the Steelers' pivot is. Congrats on winning a game where, frankly, you got one of the weirdest play call decisions I've ever seen in my life. That Isaiah Likely touchdown where he catches the ball, he gets 2 feet down in the end zone, he's extending the football, and they knock it out, and they all of a sudden you got to have 3 steps in the end. Like I was not aware that that was a rule, and I don't think very many people were either. But God, what an opportunity for the Bills. And they feel like they're starting to have it again. There's been stretches of this season where you doubted them. You started to feel a little nervous about where they were at. If they were on the same trajectory as these other teams that feel as though Yeah, their window as elite teams is closed. Not that they could contend because it's an air of parity and they still have Josh Allen. And I've said this over and over again. Um, the last couple of years, there has been a bunch of people who are dying to try to close the Buffalo Bills window. They've done it multiple years. And to me, when you have Josh Allen, your window is open. It's the same thing with the Chiefs. Yeah, this is over this season, but when you're bringing back Patrick Mahomes next year, you could win. You have Patrick Mahomes. I'm not going to overreact to his play. And like I said, I'm not going to overreact to his 19 quarterback rating when he had a million drops from his wide receivers. I think that he should have eaten that football and not snapped it. Like he owns some of the responsibility along with Andy Reid, but my God, you still have Patrick Mahomes. Lamar Jackson's a different conversation. Lamar is the one, and I would say Burrow from the standpoint of it's now gotten to the point where are you really feeling confident he's going to be able to stay healthy for the entire season? And are they ever going to be able to develop a defense or build a defense that is just credible? Just be credible. And they're not that right now. Steelers, again, you getting in does nothing. Great. You keep Mike Tomlin. You move to a new quarterback and you get essentially the same product. The Steelers have been the same thing now since the last couple of years of Ben Roethlisberger, where you go, all right, you might win, you might get into the playoffs, you might win one round, but I doubt it. You're probably not going to. Feels very directionless. The Ravens, this window feels closed, and they didn't do anything. What's your Lamar Jackson memory? What's the big Lamar Jackson moment? Like, congrats on the MVPs. You can, if you're a Lamar Jackson stan, you're going to say things like, well, if Trey Flowers doesn't drop the ball or if Mark Andrews doesn't drop the 2-point conversion, like, yeah, okay. They did. And ultimately, nothing has been done. And there's all these reports circulating from, I don't know, weird accounts, Reddit stuff, but it's been there for a while that they're probably going to move off of the coach and maybe somebody new comes in there and gets a revitalized Ravens team. But Derrick Henry ain't getting younger. And that was such an identity piece of these last couple of seasons is feeling like, okay, you were going to have the best two runners in football together in the same backfield and how devastating that could be. Remember those games against the Bills, how those two looked unstoppable at times. What a force it felt like. And yeah, maybe Lamar's not 100%. I don't think he is. But also, he's going to be 29 next year. And he's got a lot of miles on the tires. Are you sure he's going to be able to stay healthy? Are you sure he's going to run the same way moving forward? Because him as a pure passer, I think he gets a little overlooked for how good of a passer he is. That, again, there's just this greater dying narrative of Lamar, he can't do it in the pocket. Lamar can't make the throws. Lamar can't make the plays. I think he suffers from a little bit of what Mahomes is suffering from right now, where they basically got Trey Flowers in that offense, and then the rest of it is, Bateman had a huge drop in that game. Mark Andrews is like a lesser Kelsey, where, yeah, he's a pass-catching tight end who has not come up in big moments the way like Kelsey has over and over and over again. What is the thing about the Ravens moving forward that you feel good about? Like Ravens and Chiefs, at least the Chiefs got it, but I feel better about the Chiefs' future than I do about the Ravens' future. The only thing that's like a feather in their cap is that the Steelers are there and they stink and that Joe Burrow might not ever be able to stay healthy. Their body language as a team is bad. They've got a lot of holes on their defense. They don't really generate a nasty pass rush. They're not particularly special in any area other than Kyle Hamilton makes an awesome play every single game. I'm pretty worried about where the Ravens are at and where they're going with this, and I don't think it's a certainty that Lamar just comes back next year and he looks healthy and he's vintage Lamar, and without Derrick Henry, they just completely figure it out. They're moving to Keaton Mitchell. Are they bringing Henry back for another season? And what's he going to look like at that point? Like, it's kind of ugly. So, yeah, the Patriots are on the rise. The Broncos are on the rise. Next season, you're probably looking at the Chargers a little differently if they can get a healthy offensive line. I still don't respect the Jaguars. I'm sorry, I just don't. In terms of being title winners, I don't respect the Jaguars. So Blake Murphy and all the other 5 Jags fans that are going to be trying to celebrate this win over The Notre Dame quarterback, Riley Leonard. Yeah. You're going to win your division, and maybe you're a tough out for a game in the playoffs, but I just don't see the Jags winning the Super Bowl this year. I don't think that's crazy. It's right there for the Bills, man. It is right there for the Bills. What an opportunity for them. Best quarterback in the playoffs going to be yours, and a real scenario where none of those other three guys are going to be facing you. Drake May and Bo Nix. Those are your big hurdles. I will say I'd be afraid of that Texans team. That they're kind of the sleeper on the outside, where that defense is so good that I could see them beating anybody, low-scoring games against anybody. And C.J. Stroud, outside of that third quarter, he was making plays. He outplayed Mahomes. He stood in the pocket. He took some tough hits from those blitz packages that the Chiefs throw at him, and he made plays. And him and Nico Collins kind of feel like they're back on the same page. And that Woody Marks kid is actually running the football competently. Texans, I would put it as right now, Bills 1, Patriots 2, and then probably Texans 3 in terms of the best 3 teams in the AFC. No disrespect to the Broncos. I just don't trust you to go win multiple playoff rounds, and I think that the defense is not quite as good as people think, and that the quarterback I don't trust enough like those other guys to be able to make huge plays. Sorry, just don't. God, it's so open for the Bills. God, honestly, I hope you get at Buffalo. I really do. I'm really rooting for Buffalo fans because I don't know if it's ever going to be this way again where it feels quite this urgent. It is Maple Leafs game day, so you can score a Popeyes chicken sandwich for only $6 in classic or spicy. Make it your new game day tradition. Get your $6 sandwich at a Popeyes near you. You can subscribe to this podcast on Apple or on Spotify. You can reach out anytime on Twitter and Instagram at JD Bunkis. And, yeah, I'm going to take a quick break. Then I want to talk about the Raptors, who have suddenly lost 5 of 6. NBA Cup tomorrow against the New York Knicks. Is Fraud Watch on? That's next. So the Raptors are now 3rd in the Atlantic. Dropped a game to the Celtics yesterday where I was watching the late football games or the 1 o'clock games as they were closing, and I missed the first quarter of the Raps. But by the time I tuned in, I think they were down 11 to the Boston Celtics. And then I watched the Celtics lead balloon to over 20. And the Raps look lifeless, and it's the classic Celtics formula where they shoot a million threes, but basically everything's going in. Raps get back in it, though, because Boston, much like why they lost that series to the Knicks, never really deviates from who they are as a volume three-point shooting team that is largely now relying on Jaylen Brown to create their offense. They go cold, and the Raptors get hot. And here's what I will say as a positive about the Raptors. There is a toughness to this team that I really like. They don't just shrink and fade away and quit on their team and completely go in the tank. They just don't. I think that they are well coached, and I give a lot of credit to Scotty Barnes and to Brandon Ingram and the leadership structure of that team where they don't just give up on games. And that was an issue the last couple of years. Even though they weren't fully healthy and they had far worse rosters, there were a lot of games where you'd watch the Raps and it was, oh, they're done. They're done competing here. They don't want to be in this one anymore. Raps got back in it. They deserve credit for that. The problem is, I was going over this a little last week when the trend started to go this way. It's very difficult to give them moral victories when the team is built the way that they're built. That they expedited the rebuild process with the Brandon Ingram trade. They signed all these guys to big money deals, and they're supposed to be at a point in their competitive cycle now where they're better than the Boston Celtics without Jason Tatum and a stripped-down roster that includes guys like Anthony Simons, I can never get it right, who is fine. I can't have Anthony Simons being a focal point of my offense and telling me that you're in the same competitive cycle as the Raptors. I can't get beat by Jordan Walsh, who's fine. I'm just saying that where the Celtics are at was it was supposed to be a big step back. And this is just lately, but lately they've been playing better than the Raptors. They dummied the Lakers the other night. And Lakers didn't have anybody, right? Like I think Austin Reeves played. Did he play? Yeah. So Austin Reeves played, but they didn't have LeBron, they didn't have Luka. Lakers might be good, by the way. I watched a lot of that Sixers game yesterday, and Lakers might be good. Because like Austin Reeves went 1 of a million from the floor, and they still found a way to beat the Sixers. And Joel Embiid looked really bad, by the way. But yeah, this Knicks game now takes on a different level of import for the Raptors because the Knicks have owned you. They've dominated you. I think they've won 9 straight against the Raps. It's something like that, man. It's something like that. You acquired 2 pieces from them. And okay, the RJ of it all. So there's no RJ. So that's probably what you'd be saying as a Raptors fan right now, right? It's going, hey, well, they don't have RJ Barrett. They don't have RJ Barrett. They're not fully healthy. It's not the same. I would say that the Boston Celtics missing Jason Tatum is a little bit more important. That the Lakers missing Luka Doncic is a little bit more important. That the way that, man, that game, I watched the Charlotte game. So Charlotte matches up well with them for whatever reason, because that's 3 times they've played. Charlotte has won 2 of them. And even the time the Raptors won, it was a slog, and it took, if you remember, that was the game where Scotty Barnes and Brandon Ingram both had blocks on the final Charlotte possession of the game for the Raptors to win. So a little bit of grace there, because sometimes you just have that team that kind of has your number, and Con Knipple is such a problem for them, and yeah, whatever. But also, Charlotte was missing Lonzo Ball for LaMelo for almost that entire game. He went out with like an ankle injury, and the Raptors were down 6. And from that moment forward, they just got caved in. And that game, they did quit. That game was awful. This is what scares me about the Raps. It's not the quitting, because as I said, I think they're tough. There's 2 things right now. Well, I did the RJ thing. I'm kind of ranting off into multiple things, so I'll get to the RJ thing too. 3 things. Number 1, the offense gets too cold. They go through these stretches where I'm not really sure what the identity is other than give the ball to Brandon Ingram and let him try to cook up some plays. So when they were beating a lot of those bad teams and Brandon Ingram's scoring a ton, things look fine because Brandon Ingram looks like, Timo Kevin Durant. That's great. Even still, the win differential with a couple of those teams was not awesome. And I think I pointed to this, saying, I'm not trying to discredit Brandon Ingram, but you can't just become the Brandon Ingram team where you're leaning on him to create all of your offense. It still has to be a Barnes-driven team with a side of Brandon Ingram and then those other guys getting involved. And lately over this stretch, Quickly played really well against the Charlotte Hornets, right? But it does feel as though only one of the guys is getting their offense consistently on a nightly basis. It's like, okay, it's a Barnes night. Okay, it's an Ingram night. Okay, it's a Quickly night. And that's kind of fine because having multiple good, talented players who can drive your offense for different stretches is okay. But it hasn't felt like they're really in sync. They've been searching. Darko is pulling guys from the bench just about everywhere going, can somebody give me a bit of a lift right now? Can somebody make a shot for me right now? Because that is one of the premier issues of this Toronto Raptors team, and it has been over the last couple of seasons. They don't have enough shooters. Quickly can shoot it. Ingram can shoot it. The rest of the lineup is wanting when it comes to guys who can knock down a 3 and feel like they're going to. Mamu can knock down a shot, right? Jamal Shedd's been ice cold. His numbers, do not look at Jamal Shedd's box scores. Do not.
That's why A.J. Lawson legit has the opportunity.
Yeah.
Because he can shoot.
Yeah. Yeah, he did. And A.J. Lawson came in and actually was knocking down some shots and looked credible. And I went, all right, maybe. But that's what I'm saying is the reason why that guy's getting on the floor is not because RJ Barrett's hurt, not because they're missing a ton of guys. It's because the guys that they have can't shoot. And so teams are daring them to, and Jamal Shedd's shooting air balls out there. And Grady Dick's been inconsistent, and they're not. Ochai Agbaji's been inconsistent, and they just don't have enough depth there for guys that are going to spread the floor, space it, and allow Scotty Barnes to be the best version of himself or to be a better version of Quickly. And okay, that brings me to the RJ thing. RJ will help. Obviously, he's very good. There's no doubt about RJ Barrett's ability and how important he's been to this team to start the season. When Grange was on, he pointed to, hey, this guy deserves more credit for the start they're getting. He's crucially important to this team right now. But the way that the Raptors are built, they didn't give R.J. Barrett a contract extension. They could have already. He was largely viewed as the odd man out here if they try to pivot to something else. So it's kind of hard for me to look at the RJ absence and say, oh, well, when they get him back, this isn't Scotty Barnes. This isn't Brandon Ingram. This isn't even Quickly. This isn't Pirtle. He's the fringy player in the design of this team. So when they're not performing without him, I'm nervous about it. And then lastly, the third thing is I need a better defense. I can't be giving up that many points to the Charlotte Hornets. I can't be having – how many points did the Celtics have at half?
77.
Yeah.
The highest we've given up so far.
Again, 3-point variance for sure. There's a little bit of that. That's Boston gives up or hits a bunch of threes. But the identity of this team, we always knew the offense was going to be a work in progress, right? If you had where they're at right now in terms of, hey, Brandon Ingram gets hot some nights, Brandon Ingram's not quite as hot, turns the ball over a little bit too much, a little ineffective from the field. Scotty Barnes, not enough. Bench guys not shooting. That piece of it was always supposed to be a little bit more, let's see how the season develops in that regard. The defense being this porous for stretches, that is, to me, the part of the Raptors' stretch here where they've lost 5 of 6 that is kind of unacceptable.
So the 3-point variance, though, helped the Raptors, Bunk, for the first couple weeks. It was just like, your 3-point defense is amazing. They weren't doing anything special. Teams were just missing more than they were making from 3 against the Raptors. So that's leveled out a bit, and that's making the defense seem like all of a sudden an issue. So that leveled out. But to your point about RJ, I loved what Darko said after the game, though. He's like, basically, Darko, I'm obviously paraphrasing here. He's like, I'm not thinking of this like, oh, RJ's not here and how do we compensate? Because, and we've had this convo before, probably when we reach the playoffs, one of those guys is like, I'm sorry, just the trend we're seeing is most likely going to be out. He's going to be hurt.
Well, look at the NBA right now, man. I said this last week talking to you guys how the league is so frustrating right now because you watch. The reason why I watched that Lakers-Sixers game when it was across, well, there was 2 reasons. One, the football at that time stunk.
Yeah.
There was nothing going on, and then there was just the Chiefs game. So I went, okay, I can watch 2 things at once. But it's because Embiid was playing, Maxey was playing, like this, Paul George was playing. Lakers had everybody.
Yeah.
It was 2 fully healthy NBA teams.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
What a treat. What a treat to be able to watch this because most nights I tune in. I watched Denver play Atlanta the other day. And Denver's missing Aaron Gordon and Christian Brown and Atlanta's still missing Trey. And I go, all right, is this good Jalen Johnson game? And good Jokic was horrible the first half, amazing in the second half. But you never get to see these 2 complete teams play each other. So the idea that the Raptors missing one guy, as good as he is in R.J. Barrett, and you pointing to it and going, hey, well, they're missing a guy. Everybody that you're playing on every given night is missing a guy. Again, you just lost to a Charlotte Hornets team that was missing LaMelo Ball for basically the entire game. So I can't really hear that.
No.
That's kind of a nothing to me.
And Darko harped on whoever plays well is going to get minutes. Like he's like Ochai might have passed Grady and Jacoby just a bit yesterday. And then AJ Lawson's right there. It's like Jacoby and Grady, you got to be thinking
Jacoby was 0 of 2-16.
He started the game and we never heard from him again because he just didn't come out with energy and he had a couple of just like tentative layup attempts. I don't know. It's weird. It's just like that spot right now is so up for grabs and Dick and Walter got to be kicking themselves.
Well,
like you're watching AJ Lawson about to take your minutes. Like actually.
I mentioned this last week. They have what seems like a 3-way competition for who is going to stick around. But to my point about the 3-point shooting, this is your guys' job. You guys, Ochai, Jacoby, Grady. 2 of them are obviously better defensive players than Grady Dick. Grady's pressure level in terms of make baskets is way higher than the other 2 because watching Grady Dick defend in space is maybe the least pleasurable thing about the Toronto Raptors, flat out. It's when the 2 things I hate the most watching the Raps are when Mamu tries to do too much and you go, man, please, you're really good and you've been a great signing. But there's a couple of times a game where he gets like real horned up
Yeah.
and he does something extremely stupid, and you look at it and go, please don't do this. But Grady Dick defending in space. The other two guys are credible in that way. But ultimately, Jacoby Walter at Baylor, what was the big question? Do you know?
No.
Can he shoot? Can he shoot? Ochai has proven to be a solid corner three-point shooter, but he's also felt a little bit out of the mix with this roster.
Just hit his first corner
Yeah.
three of the season.
Yeah, exactly. Not knocking it down enough. And Grady Dick, who has had a couple of games here and there where, again, the offense has showed up and he's made some shots, but what is his three-point percentage this season? I'm going to say it's under 33, 34%.
Yeah, I think it's low 30s.
32%.
Yeah.
32% from three. Like, I
That
can't
can't
be
be it,
having
man.
that. I can't be having that from you, Grady Dick. So, yes, clearly it would be amazing for this team if two of those guys could start knocking down shots and you had a credible pair of wing players that would step in and make them for you. But what I'm seeing right now, like I said, is just an offense that doesn't appear to have much of an identity. They share the ball well. Like, there's not selfish play. Like, I don't view it as even Brendan Ingram in this. Sometimes I feel as though he's taking the ball more on his shoulders and said, like, I got to create something because they're not getting buckets. But I haven't viewed this as Ingram is playing selfish and other guys are going cold. It's just like they don't have anybody making shots. Point guard, Shed, not making shots. All three wing players, not really making shots. Do you like it when Scotty Barnes sets his feet and shoots a three? I don't. I'm like, this isn't going in. So, yeah, they need more shooting. Anyway, we got to take a break. We'll come back. We'll talk to Kris Versteeg about a huge game tonight. And then, what was the difference between this one and the last one against Montreal? So, Leafs get a point Saturday. Thanks to a beautiful play by Nick Roy, then breakaway slap shot by Scott Laughton, who is quickly becoming a fan favorite despite being traded for a first-round pick and a top prospect, which is crazy in this market. Like, normally you are measured very much against how much you are acquired for or what you make. And Scott Laughton, I would say, almost universally popular. Anyway, Kris Versteeg, also universally popular. The inventor, creator, proprietor of the Clever app and the Clever Super Leagues, which, again, you can download the Clever app anywhere. Apps are available. And, two-time Stanley Cup champion. What's up, buddy? Cool look from the car.
You like look? Is it supposed to be glasses on or off?
No, glasses on looks cool. Glasses on. You just look like you're above it right now. You know that.
Yeah, I haven't seen sun in Ontario for like 2 weeks, so I figured I'd put them on.
Yeah, no, it turns out sun, important. Sun is good.
Yeah. Vitamin D is a big thing.
Yeah, like not having, for me, it's weird because I'll come to work and it's basically dark and then I'll leave here and then I got to get some stuff done during the day. And by the time it's 3 o'clock, it's just dark outside and I go, all right, I guess time for bed. I guess time for watching sports in bed. Okay, so let's just start with this. Last time you were on, it was after the Canadiens game that was just beyond brutal. They were awful. And their possession metrics are still down. They should be they're not getting as much 5-on-5 shot share, but the team has drastically improved since you were last on. It is a little Versteeg curse because you're still coming on after a loss, but they've been playing better. They've been winning games. So what looks the most different for you?
Well, you got healthy bodies back, and you got guys now slotted into what we talked about, their roles. Guys understanding, I'm on the third line to grind. I'm on the first line to score. Max Domi, again, his game's starting to elevate a little bit more. You got, Nicholas Waugh coming back, helping on the third line. So guys have more identity to what they can do, which is obviously serving the team more. There's still obvious issues with the power play and things like that, but you have guys more in defined roles, and obviously Matthews coming back too. It helps settle in the lineup. So once you go down lower and lower, I mean, Lawton's on the fourth line right now. Should he really be on the fourth line? But it's the balance of the lines. It's everyone contributing and the more identity to each guy in one specific situation.
So the thing that I'm probably most optimistic about right now in terms of when I'm looking at them and saying, man, I like this, it's their center depth. That year over year, you've said it a million times, and there's nobody that disagrees with you. Max Domi's not a centerman. Like, he should not be anchoring a third line and trying to be, I guess, an offensive specialist up the middle. They had David Camp for years, who I think is actually just like a fine player, but when he was trying to be the 3C or the 4C with heavy minutes, didn't have basically any offensive upside. Now they're going 4 deep down the middle with Nick Waugh, Austin Matthews, John Tavares, Scott Lawton, who can all not just, I think, defend their position, who are all responsible players, but create some offense when you need it to happen.
Oh, totally. And I'm even looking at the lineup thinking, like, what if you move Lawton up and move Tavares to the wing to beef up your top six, give a defensively responsible guy? Like, you have options now to move guys. Obviously, it kills your fourth line a little bit if you want to load up the top nine and roll that. But you have a lot of depth, a lot of guys that can play that position. And I think now I'd be interested to see if the Leafs start to maneuver guys around. Like I said, Tavares has been playing good, but maybe move him to the left and load up the top six a little bit more with Lawton as the defensive responsible guy. And then that could allow like an Easton Cowan to go to the fourth line and then fight for first line positioning with Max Domi. So Max Domi's going, he keeps there, he goes to the fourth line, right? So it's pretty interesting. It's going to be interesting to see what they do with the center depth. Are they just going to try to go four deep and try to beat you down with four lines? Or are they going to try to move guys in and out and also see and tinker what works as well? But looking at the lineup, those would be things that I'd be looking at doing right now. Like now Lawton's going, he's feeling his game, move him up the lineup maybe a couple times, tinker more with the centerman, right? Like move Tavares over. Or heck, if Matthews isn't going, maybe get him over. Try to get him freed up a little bit more and find ways to create off. I know people think it's insane, but you got to find ways to get points. You got to find ways to get guys going. You got to, move it around. And now that you have this luxury of center depth, why not try certain things, right? And I know they're winning and they're finding ways to win, but as they start going, you're going to want to also see what else works and who works with who.
But if they put Austin Matthews on the wing as he's chasing the goals record, and that there's been a conversation about whether or not he still has it, they'll never.
I'm not saying that's the there's just opportunity to try things now that you have center depth.
Yeah.
Right.
I just like that it feels as though you're not waiting for one of the top two lines to score.
No.
Because so lately Nylander hasn't been playing very well. And the second line has not been contributing to the way that it was early in the season when they were basically carrying this team. They were absent of Matthews. I don't know, maybe Tavares is worn down a little bit. Maybe Nylander wore down a little bit, or that he has some illness that kept him out of a game that has lingered a bit. I don't know. It's hard to put the finger on it, and I think it needs a little bit more of a sample. And right now it's buried because they're not winning. But it doesn't.
I think Nylander quickly, I think he's just became way too lax in his game over a certain period of time. So like a 2-week period, especially when everyone was out. And now it's catching up to him. That's what I see. Just even the play in Carolina, the soft play that they turned over and scored, he was kind of getting away with those earlier. And now I feel like that play, he's just got to ratchet up his intensity again. That's on the Nylander. But.
Well, also, he's able to get away with it differently when he's producing a ton of points. So it's like if he's getting his production and then you have those plays, people go, shrug the shoulder, like Nylander, he did his thing. There was, who was it? I think it was Columbus. They won a game in overtime this year where he was terrible. Like one of their worst players. Yeah, and then he scores this beautiful walk-off winner in overtime. That's just a disgusting goal, and everyone goes, celebrate him. And I'm like, that is actually kind of annoying because he gets away with everything that ends up happening within the game. So I think that's actually a pretty fair point by you. It's just he's always going to be measured by his production, but if he wants it to be a little bit more complete, then yes, probably ratcheting up to the intensity. But like the point I was making is it used to feel with a lot of teams over the course of the Matthews era that they were essentially waiting for those two groups to go over the boards if they wanted every bit of offense. How did you and I describe it year over year? Punt. They're punting. Hey, they're sending out the punt line. Chip it in and hope and pray that you don't get scored against to buy those guys time. Now the third line with Nick Waugh, he all of a sudden gets McMahon going. All of a sudden Dakota Joshua looks better. Defined roles for sure. But I do want to fixate a little bit on Nick Waugh here because to my eye, these last few games, he's been one of their most important players. And there is a just massive difference between what he's doing for them as a real minute eater in the third line center role versus guys that they've had in the past.
Yeah, and Nick Waugh, you got to think, I think that injury helped him kind of reset, right? Like he comes into a new situation, you're being leveled against Marner, there's high expectations for a guy that doesn't produce a high-end octane of offense. So he comes in, he struggles a little bit, maybe struggles a bit with identity and finding guys to play with. he gets hurt. And I think it just allows him to reset and really watch games and find, calm down and find what makes him valuable and reset. And I think since you've seen him come back, like you said, he's playing with certain guys. They're starting to find their game. I mean, he makes a sick play on the PK to pick that off and send Lawton in. That's just a confidence play when you're picking pucks out of the air like that, right? That just shows you're starting to feel it when you're seeing things maybe before you didn't. So I think that little break helped him reset, understand his role, and then also maybe feel a little bit important. Hey, when team doesn't have me, they're not as good, right? And there is always a bit of psychology like that with a player. Like if a player leaves the lineup and the team doesn't do well, then sometimes you're like, okay, it's on me to fix this, or maybe I am this important to the team, right? And it doesn't always take the coach to tell you how important, but sometimes you got to go through a little bit of your own reflection and self-belief. And I think that helped him. But the identity of what he is, the third line center, he can go to the wing, he can do different things. He's a PK guy. I think that break helped him really define that. And then coming back, he's starting to execute.
Well, one of the things that's been really apparent to me that also has felt different. Again, like the team isn't perfect right now. They're still sitting there with 30 points and huge game tonight against Tampa Bay that will probably dictate some of the narrative. Like they're always one game away from where they get shelled by a team that we now go back into full panic mode. But you gotta at least celebrate some of the things that have been, turning the narrative a bit, right? Like so the goaltending for them was great. Stetcher for them is great. But to me, we've always said they're going to go as Matthews goes, right? That the identity of the team is Matthews and that he needs to basically be playing with a ton of confidence and a ton of attitude, and then it sprinkles out to the rest of the lineup. And that's the way that it felt earlier this season too, where in his absence or even in the games that he was playing in, that other guys were basically feeding off of that energy. You weren't really getting anything from Dakota Joshua. Nick Waugh wasn't giving you what he has been over this last stretch of games. Now, all of a sudden, Lawton comes back. Stetcher joins this team. Nick Waugh is healthy playing. And by proxy, the two wingers that he's with all of a sudden feel drastically more important with the team. This is actually, if you're tree living, I would think this is one of the most encouraging dynamics that is happening right now with your group, which is other guys feel more involved than just the top few players. That the other guys feel relevant and not just like relevant, they feel really important, and that they're kind of imposing their style of play and their contributions onto this team. That's sort of the DNA change that you're kind of anticipating or that you were expecting when they moved off of Marner.
Totally. And think about though, Lawton's been hurt, Roy's been hurt, guys have been hurt. So this is really the first time you're starting to settle in besides their back end of seeing what their forward group can look like and do. And then you're talking about as the bottom guys go, now you can have Lawton go take a D zone face off. You can have Roy go take a D zone face off. You can have certain guys in certain situations that give, the opportunity to get Matthews in more offensive zone face offs and offensive zone looks. So you're not taxing them too much in little situations that now veteran guys can handle. So I think you're now seeing the forward group of guys with the identity. You're seeing the collection of all of them finally together. They're starting to understand the way to play, right? Obviously from the back end, still things got to get fixed in power play, but you're starting to see the identity of all the forwards playing together and certain guys helping the top guys so they don't get so taxed or overtaxed in certain situations of the game that allow them to go out and produce on the offensive side.
Yeah, again, I don't want to make it seem like everything is perfect now in Leafland. Their possession numbers are still terrible. They've got injuries to their goaltenders that are real scary. Hildeby played well against Montreal, was awesome in overtime, and, really kind of kept the minute in the second period when Toronto sort of went to sleep. Second periods remain an issue. The power play is dreadful. But if you're looking for
I noticed face-offs, though. Face-offs are an issue, too. Like their wingers on face-offs. Think about the opening draw against Carolina. Both wingers bust through. There's no holdup by Domi or Nyes, and then they're in on the forecheck. That, to me, is a subtle fix to the Leafs game that remains an issue. And I think as games go on, that's why second period struggles. The Leafs wingers aren't dialed in on face-offs at blocking guys out, getting it physical. And then they take on water when they don't need to. But I think that's another piece to their game that they could fix easily and right away.
Well, you were right about the team defending, right? And the roles and the need to just have the attention to detail and the effort. because that to me has flipped. Like I said, the positives to me have been other guys in the lineup feel important. The roles are starting to be defined. You're getting actual upward momentum from your bottom six and from depth blue liners that you weren't getting all year before. Your penalty kill has been great. Your goaltending has been great. And you're not, as much as they still do have those stretches where they take on water, they're actually winning puck battles now and getting some pucks out. And it doesn't just feel like this is now lasting over the course of a game. It usually pops up for 10 minutes in a period. But that's what I want to get to the Stecher piece of this, because it's hard not to just look at his arrival with the Leafs and say, man, this helps shore up a lot of their issues. He plays with a ton of energy. He's somebody who can actually move a puck. He plays from the right side, so it's allowed Jake McCabe to play properly on his left side, and all of a sudden you actually have a pairing that works. And I had Gazdic on Friday, and he's a big Stecher guy. Like, he's got his connections with Edmonton, and so he knew what he meant to their room. But he made a point that I wanted to ask you about, which is how much one guy that comes in with a fresh perspective or who's desperate at the right time can change the dynamic of a room.
Oh, especially a guy with Stetcher's story and what he's been through. He's played in Canadian markets. He's a guy that's been on teams. I know we were texting about it with Edmonton. He's an offensive guy who needs to take risks, but really with Bouchard and the other guy there, 71, I can't remember his name. They're not going to allow him to take that risk. So this guy comes in to the room. He obviously fills a need on the right side. He's a little more creative in the D zone at how he exits the ice for the offensive guys to get the puck in their hands. He has such high energy too. And I think that energy feeds into the team, right? Like, we've always asked this team to play with more energy. Not even just play for yourself, but play for others. And I think when you bring a guy in like Troy Stecher, that you can visibly and statistically see is changing how the Leafs play a little bit, it drives emotion throughout the entirety of the team. So Troy's been an unbelievable story to where he's got through today. I believe there's something about his father too, a long time ago. So he lost his father, and there's a lot of things that have gone into his road that have made it rocky for him to get here. So I'm really rooting for a guy like Troy Stecher, but it's a fit for him now because the Leafs don't have what he does on the back end. So he's not getting hampered by other guys who do that better, similar to Edmonton or Vancouver with Hughes there and other guys. So he's now allowed to play to his strengths while being trusted in that role, because the Leafs don't really have anyone else to do it.
I keep forgetting to bring this up, but I have something that I call the Jared Sullinger test. And it's based off this NBA player, Jared Sullinger, who went from the Celtics to the Raptors. And he had like pedigree. He was this incredible player at Ohio State that was supposed to be like a real needle mover in the draft. And he had some injury problems that kind of derailed his career. But the Raptors signed him one offseason, and local media got excited about him. They were like, man, this guy, it's underrated value. He's a real scorer. He's really good. There's a lot to like here. And if you looked at Celtics fans' reactions to losing this player, they were unanimously good riddance. You know, like, this guy stinks. This guy was always hurt. He couldn't play defense. And so I came up with the Jared Sullinger test, which is look at the market where the guy came from and how the fans feel about him. Don't just listen to what the media is saying in this case. Look at the wider scope of is there a universal appraise? And with Troy Stecher, he passes the Jared Sullinger test, where that market, all of his posts, all the Edmonton fans that I searched out on social media, they're all reacting like, hey, man, we wish you the best of luck. This sucks that we lost you. We're pissed that we lost you. We're annoyed that you're doing so well with the Leafs, but also kind of happy for you. That's a great positive indicator for me of a guy that, all right, is it going to be sustainable to this degree in terms of, should Troy Stecher be one of your most important players on a cup-winning team? I probably would say no. I would say that maybe that's not the case. But in terms of it being sustainable and lasting, where he is a productive and important piece of your team, I'm actually feeling more and more confident about that.
100%. He's a guy that can contribute. You get Tanev back, you get Carlo back. He's more important than the other guys at the bottom with Myers, even Benoit. He just adds an element that even Tanev and Carlo don't really add, and that's just moving the puck and, you know, ragging pucks and finding offense on the blue line. And, you know, you could see why the Oilers fans would be choked, though, right?
Yeah, of course.
You lose a guy like that because they paid Bouchard so much damn money, right? So that's just how it is. That's the way of the game. But he's a guy that easily could fit into this Leafs lineup and add value once everyone's back.
Yeah, I think it's going to actually be pretty interesting if and when, because I don't know about Carlo. He's gotten surgery now.
Yeah, what's his timeline?
No, we don't know, buddy. Ask me any Leafs timeline, and I'll answer it for you. We don't know. They've said Wool is good and that he's going to be back in a week, but that makes it even weirder because he's playing the best he's ever looked, and the injury didn't look severe, and they go, he'll be back in a week. And the question, I saw Jay Rosehill ask it, and it was the right thing. He's like, what injury for a goalie is just a week? I'm like, okay, maybe he tweaked a little something. Maybe they're being overly cautious. But either way, this is like a legacy moment for the Leafs training staff with Joe Wool, because they're done making timelines with anybody. Even Chris Tanev, they go, he's skating, he's feeling better, but we're still doing tests. He took 2 head injuries as an older player. Obviously, they're going to be cautious. But if Joe Wool now disappears, because Stolarz is just gone. He's just disappeared. Yeah. No one knows where he is. No one knows.
We have no timeline on Stolarz.
No timeline on Stolarz. No timeline on Tanev. No timeline on Carlo. But I would say Carlo and Stolarz are the biggest mysteries, where it's just like your guess is as good as anybody's whether or not they're even going to play hockey again this season. Like that's where it's at. Wool, they need to get this right because everybody's so pissed that this keeps happening, where Berube says, it's not a big deal, and then the guy goes on IR and gets surgery. They find a pebble in a knee. It's just not very good. But, yeah, one.
There's just a little more honesty with it. Like, the questions wouldn't come up all the time, and it's with every player, right?
I know.
Like,
that's it. And
the game's not what it was before, where you'd actually, like, if I remember Jeff Carter broke his foot in the finals against us, and we're like, we'll give him a whack in the foot every time he's on for the faceoff. Like, that doesn't really happen anymore.
Well, I don't think it happens nearly as much in the regular season either. Like, you're talking about a final. Sure, you're going to do whatever you can do in the playoffs. But the idea that the Leafs would reveal some of these injuries and that the other team is in their dressing room going over the injury report saying, all right, here's all the guys that we're going to hurt. This isn't the early 2000s NHL where there's 5 guys in the lineup that are basically there to hurt you.
Yeah. No, it makes no sense. I've still found it kind of strange. Even when we were playing, though, like I said, Stanley Cup Finals, we would target a guy if we heard his shoulder was hurt, so we try to get physical on him or things like that. But even in the regular season, you find a guy had a broken hand, you're not going to go slash his hand or anything. Like, I don't know. I think the questions always come up because of in the past that the Matthews missing playoff games and then Willie out of nowhere and there's no clarity, and then people start making up stories. And I think just, not everything has to be revealed, but just a little more honesty of timelines and what's actually going on, so the questions don't arise. So when the player comes back and doesn't play well, he's kind of protected too,
Well, I watched Marty St. Louis the other day at a podium where he just went over all the Habs injuries and all the Habs timelines. Like, it isn't this way with every team, because some fans push back because there's certain people that they'll just stand for the team no matter what. They're like, well, what do you want them to say? And what do you want them to do? They're protecting their players. And you go, well, not every organization does this. Apparently it's a tree living thing. And I have a hard time believing that a lot of it doesn't have to do with Matthews, given that early in his career, he had the wrist stuff that he got nervous about, felt he was targeted. And then now they've kind of just done a blanket policy to not make it seem as though he's treated differently than the rest of the team. That's my read on it, but I don't know.
Yeah, and I played in Calgary for 2 years, and certain things were and certain things weren't. So I don't know. Obviously, as you evolve as a GM, things are going to change in your beliefs and your thoughts. So maybe he's changed to that, or maybe someone in the organization wants it to be more like that, or someone's agent. I don't know. You never know, which changes the thought of the entirety of the organization. So, like, I was with Tree in the past, and they were pretty forthcoming on stuff. Not everything, just like probably Montreal is right now, explaining the basics of a certain injury compared to one where you truly don't have a timeline on.
So I texted you that I don't even want to talk to you about the power play because I just feel like it's the same thing that we've been doing for forever. But this is as bad as it's ever been, man. Like,
it's bad.
Well, yeah, it's 29th in the NHL.
Yeah.
They've had stretches, right? Like, there's always been stretches where you've come on and we've talked about it, and you've been like, put a different guy who can walk the line, right? Give TJ Brody a look. Who used to be interesting. Yeah. It's just, we've done this. We've talked about it over and over and over again because it has had flat periods. But now it has gotten to the point where, like I tweeted this the other day, I'm like borderline depressed when they draw a penalty because I just know it's going to kill all the momentum. They're gonna pass it around, they're gonna dust it off, and then eventually somebody, it's probably Matthews or Cowan or Nylander, is gonna shoot it from the flank, and it's gonna be an easy save, one and done, out. Or it's John Tavares in the middle where he does this like fadeaway shot where he like spins and turns and whips it at the net. I don't really know what it's supposed to be doing. Like, like when you watch Tampa's power play, right? They want to have Kucherov there and they want to have him set somebody up for a dangerous opportunity. You watch Montreal, they snap it around and it's, hey, the best look possible whenever a guy gets it. Obviously the most famous one is Ovechkin because it's, hey, we're all just trying to set up the OV one-timer. I don't know what the Leafs are trying to get to. Like, I don't watch it and say, what is the actual grade A plan that they are trying to accomplish when it comes to their best case opportunity?
Okay, so man versus man, Montreal's top unit versus Toronto. Is the talent discrepancy besides the D-man that much different?
No.
It's not, right? Watch Montreal, how they drag Suzuki down to the corner. Him and Caulfield play those little low bump plays. They execute a seam pass or a shot from up top. It's like very controlled, but very, they know where the puck's got to go in order to get the puck later. You watch the Leafs power play, it's over, it's slow, they hold the puck, there's no real puck movement. The only piece of the Leafs power play that I started to like is when Cowan would drop low, get the puck and kind of walk out where he had that one shot, but he could have done it 2 or 3 more times. There's just like no real execution on low plays. There's no understanding of, okay, why not bring Cowan more behind the net for a little bit of bump and release with Matthews to get a shot back up top, or why don't you drag it out to the other side, or find other ways in specific areas on the ice that are going to free up shots from up top that then can allow the seam passes to open. Because like I watch Montreal's power play, it's all start low, little bit of bump passes, figure out a lane, if not up top, reset, guys moving around, guys are interchangeable. They'll even scissor and there's motion around the power play to find different shooting lanes for different guys. But the Leafs are so stationary. There's no real execution of let's get the puck here, then to get it to here for a certain look, right? It's just like get the puck to Matthews, maybe take a wrister, get it up top, take a hope wrister. But there's no real execution before that allows that shot from up top to happen with time and space either. So for me, you could look at different looks, whether, Matthews goes to the bumper. I know people don't want to hear that. And Tavares goes low, or does Matthews go low because he's not really a threat on his one-timer side? You leave Cowan or you leave Tavares on the half wall and they start to work it low like a Caulfield Suzuki where they're starting to find more options from down low. There's so many other things that they can do, but they just put the guys in their spots. And then they just be like, you go out and play and hope this works. It doesn't really look like there's any execution plan or understanding of what they need to do in order just to get one clean shot, because there's so much stuff that goes into a power play just to get one clean shot from up top. It's not just pass it to the point and shoot, right? You got to drag guys down. You got to find different options. You got to create different angles and then look for that opportunity. But the Leafs are just so stagnant and there's real no execution. And you have a guy like Cowan on the power play who takes the puck to the net the one time. And then I'm sure he's like the second time, he's like, oh, I won't get on the power play if I shoot this one again and I don't pass it, where he should take it to the net, right? So there's just a lot of that right now. And if they figure out that power play, I mean, they get 2 power plays to score 1 goal, they win last game, right? But at the end of the day, they're not even looking dangerous. They're struggling on entries with possession. And there's just a lot there. But the puck movement is way too slow. The box moves easily when the power plays on. So I think it's just maybe interchanging a couple pieces and then going from there. But, it will take a plan from Savard. He's going to have to figure it out.
Well, my thing is at this point, they've tried interchanging multiple pieces. Like they've done Riley, then they went OEL, then they went 5 forwards and it didn't really work out. And now
but they're not
Nizo.
Really changing the structure of the power play.
No, but that's what I'm saying is like, that needs to happen now at this point, because it's just been too much of like, we're basically not blaming. That's not the right word, because they're not publicly going like, well, we took Morgan Riley off the power play because we feel like he's the issue. They're obviously just trying to improve it. But I'm saying that those interchangeable, that one-off just one piece comes off the top power play and you replace him with a different body. That's just not working. Like, again, we're almost mid-December now and you're 29th.
Yeah, but you got to look at the Montreal power play. Like Caulfield and Suzuki set up on the one side, they set up in an overload, right? And then from there, it shifts into a 1-3-1, and then they use back of the net plays. So it's like the power play is always interchanging structure. So the PK doesn't know if they're going to be set up in an overload. They don't know if they're going to be set up in a 1-3-1. Guys are moving around for different shot options, where the Leafs are just like 1-3-1.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? There's no real. And then the only time they did get a chance is actually when Cowan went low and got the puck, because now he can attack almost in the
something
overload.
different. And I think that's why they like him out there, is because he actually does feel like a change from everything they've had all season long, the way he plays.
Now build stuff around that.
Yeah.
Right? Build stuff around that. Maybe it's Matthews and Cowan on that side playing tinker pass like Suzuki and Caulfield do, right? Maybe then Cowan flips to the slot or Matthews flips to the slot. You got to do different looks. It can't just be the same damn thing over and over. A 1-3-1, shots from the flank, blah, blah, blah. Like, it's like you got to have different looks. You got to have different setups, different opportunities, and different guys have strengths inside the power play. I think Cowan's a good facilitator on the side and low, right? So there's just different setups and looks that you have to do.
All I got to say is it's got to start happening now. Like, it's just, we're into December here, and being 29th with that much talent, I just think it's getting to the point of being unacceptable. And yeah, to your point, you're right. It is. It's been 1-3-1 forever now. And that's all it's ever looked like. And that's what I'm saying, is it does feel as though what they're essentially trying to get to is a wrister from a bad angle from Matthews or Nylander, and praying that Tavares can either get a tip on it or that it gets loose and he jams it home. Or it's that hope shot that you mentioned from the point. That's okay, flutter it through. Maybe you get a tip, but it's not something where you're like, man, you like Bouchard, for example, where it's, hey, we want it to get up to him. We want him to be able to just bomb one in there because that's one of the best shots that we can get. That's not the way that you feel when they're shooting a wrister from the point.
Edmonton has designed low plays to execute that up top. Leafs are just passing it around, and then he has to walk the line and try to find a lane. There's no real execution to get it there to him that allows the lane or the shot to happen.
Would you put Stetcher on PP1?
I mean, honestly, if they're set up like this, it doesn't really matter.
Yeah.
I don't think one D-man right now is going to change.
That's the point. That's the point, though.
That's like kind of what you're saying, right? Like, I understand. Like, I would try Stretcher there, sure, but until they start to throw a different look at it or practice different things, and the power play guys have to buy into moving the puck too, right? They can't just hold. So there's got to be a complete buy-in from the guys on it. Savard's got to come up with a plan, and it's not that hard. I can tell you that. It's an easy plan to figure out for those guys and to settle in with the amount of skill and options they got. But those guys will then have to believe into that plan.
All right, you can put your sunglasses on and you can go for a rip. Yeah. There you go. Those are nice. Those look good.
I just got them.
Yeah.
They're nice.
Yeah, they are nice. All right, Kris Versteeg. Again, download the Clever app. It's free wherever you get apps. You got kids in sports, you should be taking a look at it. Kris, thanks for making time, buddy. I'll talk to you soon. There you go. Two-time Stanley Cup champion. And again, creator of the Clever app. So, yeah, I love what he said there. That's perfect. Doesn't matter who you're putting in if they're going to keep doing it this way. That 1-3-1, that honestly, you can just, if you've watched Leaf games this season, you could close your eyes and see the whole power play. You could, like, beat for beat what it looks like. And he's right. There's too much talent. And so as much as we've done this before where it's like, hey, do you put in Nyes instead of Tavares? Hey, do you put in Stetcher instead of, like, at some point, if you are asking to take some of the most talented players that you have off the ice to hope the power play works, that's one, it's the age-old thing that I always reference, the teacher thing. If one student is failing, that's on the student. If the whole class is failing, that's on the teacher. Anyway, I got to say, too, before I take a break here and do what we missed. So Matthew Nyes, he gave this, I forgot to bring it up with Versteeg, but I like this a lot. He brought up, I got it in my, I don't know how the new Instagram is. They changed it all around, and now I got no idea where anything goes. Like, what? Stop doing updates. Just leave it as is. Why'd you do this to me? Like, now just full tech idiot who can't find anything. Yeah. So Nyes gave this quote. We have a bit of a tendency to be flat at home, but we'll come out Saturday and give payback to these guys in reference to Montreal. And yeah, they started better, and the second period was horrible, and they lost the game. But I like that. I love that. I want more of this from Matthew Nyes. We talked about it on Leafs Talk the other day, how Stetcher gave this honest, transparent interview about being on his seventh team and playing with desperation, and he's likable. Lawton, I think, comes off that way too, where he jokes around a little bit with the media. He's sort of just himself. He doesn't seem too fazed by it. Nylander, I've said in the past that one thing that is good with him is he's sort of passive and cool, but in an authentic way that works. And to my point about how the other guys on the team feel more important than they have in years past, that's the most encouraging thing that's happening with the Leafs right now. Nick Waugh feels involved and important. Lawton feels involved and important. Stetcher feels involved and important. Nyes has been playing a lot better lately. I know he had the points. He was pouring it in 5-on-5 before the injury, but didn't quite look right. And I think to Chris's point about Nick Waugh getting his time to reset, I think that potentially the same thing happened with Nyes, and that he was able to manage whatever that injury was. But I love the idea that other guys than Matthews and Tavares and Riley and Nylander are throwing skin in the game with the way that they talk and the way that they act and the way that they play, taking so much pressure off those other guys, and it does feel a little different when that's happening. I shouldn't even qualify this anymore, but there's a lot to still be worried about, and I still think that they need a stretch of hockey before Christmas that changes the way that you view this team. But in terms of encouraging steps, one of the things about this team was supposed to be changing the DNA. And at first it looked like, oh my God, look at what you're getting from Dakota Joshua. Michelli's a healthy scratch. And I don't know when he's coming back or if he's coming back. It's got to probably be an injury. A lot of it looked the same in a bad way, like the worst of it. Other guys being contributors, other guys feeling really important, and other guys kind of being themselves and playing and talking with an attitude, that is a very good thing, and that is a departure from the past. Anyways, I got to do that read. It's Leafs game day. Score a Popeye's chicken sandwich for only $6 in classic or spicy. Make it your new game day tradition. Get your $6 chicken sandwich at a Popeye's near you. Quick break. We'll hit what we missed. All right. Monday edition of What We Missed with Armin. Let's get it going. I'm going to try to hit a bunch here. So let's see if I can rapid fire.
The Blue Jays outrighted Yariel Rodgriguez off the roster this Saturday. He cleared waivers without any team claiming him.
Yeah.
Clearing a 40-man spot on the roster. He's heading into his third year of a 5-year contract with the Jays.
Yeah, well, $11 million per? No, maybe it's less than that.
7.
7. Yeah, that's too high. Yeah. I don't really have deep thoughts on this. I'm not a huge Yariel guy. I never was. I didn't really like him as a starter. It felt like he unlocked something as a back-end bullpen guy when he was throwing that crazy velo, but it didn't last. And I'm just never nuts about guys that walk as much as they do when they're leverage. So outside of that, like month and a half with Yariel, maybe a little bit more, 2 months, where it looked like he could genuinely be the closer. And I was for that. It just never really looked like it was working. And you can show me the WAR, you can show me that he was fine as a 5th starting pitcher or whatever it was that season. Yeah, you're trying to contend for a World Series, and without him being that nasty velo guy at the back end of the bullpen, I didn't really see the role. And you saw that throughout the postseason when he fell off the roster, became unusable. I'm surprised no other team claimed him at only $7 million, considering you can stretch him out a little bit, like he's capable, and that he has shown the upside that he showed. People have pointed to this going maybe it's just Blue Jays' weird roster manipulation. You don't DFA a guy and let every team in baseball take a crack if it's some big plan you have. But what I've been told is he'll get a chance to compete in spring and earn a spot back. And guess what, man? If he's throwing that heat that he was throwing in the first few months of the season, then he'll probably get a spot, because I don't think that there's going to be a bullpen full of relievers that are better than Yariel Rodgriguez at his best. So I think that's kind of what you're hoping for, is that he returns to that form. He's a fireballer again, and you get him back. But no, you're not. People are like, oh, it's very curious. They want him to compete. No, like, you outrighted him. Everybody had a crack to get Yariel, and nobody did. So I guess I don't even think it is best case scenario for you, because I think if Blue Jays had their way, they would have wanted somebody to take that money off the books, obviously. So, yeah, whatever. Yeah, it's kind of whatever. What's next?
Friday, the World Cup draw, the scintillating hours of television.
Yeah. Horrible.
The Canada got placed in their group, and we found out the World Cup schedule for Toronto. I'm going to read it out. Canada versus UEFA Pathé. So we don't know who it is.
Probably
That's going to be the first game. Maybe
Should be Italy.
Maybe.
All the soccer hardos I talked to said that they got to get that done. That it's Wales and who else is in there?
It's definitely not a guarantee, speaking to my
It's
Italian buddies.
Yeah, but the Italian guys are the most pessimistic. I'm saying I didn't ask the Italian bros. I asked I asked the real soccer
neutral.
heads. Yeah.
They missed the last two World Cups.
No,
doing the same thing.
I'm not saying they can't. What I'm saying is that the teams that they're competing against, they better do it.
The question is, do you want them to do it? Because if Italy doesn't qualify, Canada has a better chance to go to the knockout rounds. But we don't get Canada-Italy for the whole
Yeah,
opening.
I'm torn on this. That's a great way to frame it, because I want Canada to win. So, yeah, I guess ultimately I don't want Italy to qualify. Like, I don't. I'm rooting for Canada. But I will say that Canada-Italy is going to create divisions amongst people that will never be forgotten. Because I, like everybody else, texted all my Italian buds.
Yeah.
Who are you rooting for? And I'm not exaggerating when I say every single one of them said Italy. And they all gave me some answer of, I just don't have the relationship with Canada soccer that I have with Italy. And I have so many childhood memories. And my parents are first gen. And I go, all right. Okay. Or I got no comments.
I got the neutrals, where it was like, I don't mind either result. Whatever happens, I'm happy.
That is the ultimate BS. I don't accept. I'm sorry. Like, yes, obviously, if that outcome happens and you are an Italian Canadian and you've rooted for Italy your whole life and they advance and they beat Canada, you shouldn't feel sorry about that and that you're going to be rooting for them moving forward. I'll say this. I've seen a lot of people going, oh, you can't do it, you're Canadian. You can't do it, you're Canadian. You can't do it, you're Canadian.
Latvia, Canada?
No,
Where are you feeling?
Canada, not even close. I'm not Latvian. I was never born in Latvia. My dad wasn't born in Latvia. Like, I'm Canadian. I got Latvian and Irish descent. I'm not rooting for those teams in any situation against Canada, except for round robin World Juniors. It's fun because I like what it means to Latvia versus what it means to Canada, unless it's a knockout game. But if it's for nothing, then I always root for Latvia in that, because they're such big underdogs. I'm just an underdog rooter, and I like to troll McKee mostly. What I would say is this. Listen, man, we're an immigrant nation. This is what happens. Like, you're going to have some torn allegiances here. Do I love it? No, I don't. I wish everybody was 10 toes down for Canada. But I will say that I would rather have the Italian dudes say how it really is and be down on college with me, rocking the Azzurri, over them doing what you just said, which is like, anybody wins and it's fine. And you try to pretend as though what's in your heart you're too afraid to say. So I'll be down on college for that game, 100%.
Well, that day will be one of the most legendary patio days.
No, that's what I'm saying. It's
ever
gonna be
in the city.
It's going to be incredible.
They're going to be selling seats by the
That's
pop.
part of why I want Italy in, is for that moment. And I got good buds who are rocking the blue.
Yeah.
They're gonna
I kind of want them to, in a way, in a sense.
I don't want them to, because I want Canada to advance, and it'd be so much better if it was a lesser country in the pod that they got, because they drew Qatar and Switzerland.
Yeah. Qatar,
Yeah, so it's on the table for these guys. I think what really sucks is the games Toronto got overall, because if they don't get Italy-Toronto, or sorry, Italy-Canada, whoopsie.
Whoa!
I mean, it's kind of true, though.
For us,
Anyway, yeah.
That's funny. So they got Ghana. So the other games
man, there's
are
no
Ghana,
games.
Panama.
I got the soccer hipsters going, man, Germany and Cote d'Ivoire is amazing.
Well, the thing with World Cup games, Bunk, though, is like the name brand is something, but sometimes the funner games are those random
Buddy,
games.
they're spending tens of millions of dollars to expedite the Gardner stuff. Like the money that's been sunk into this so that we can get, what's the one game? Ghana. We get 2 Panama games.
That's
Oh man,
unacceptable because we already play them in.
Let's just be real. If you're a soccer diehard and you're just stoked on having it here, awesome. If you're from Panama, like you got family from Panama or Ghana, like good for you. Congrats on the win.
Yeah. Sure.
But not getting an England game, not getting one just obvious 100% banger outside of potentially Canada versus Italy.
Yeah.
It's a bummer, man. You're hosting a World Cup and you get Ghana versus Panama. I'm sorry. No one's going to tell me otherwise.
Here's the thing, Buck. I think with 16 more teams in this World Cup, actually a lot of the cities got this kind of watered down sketch.
Whatever.
It looks like.
Yeah. I'm just saying that this stinks. And at least with Vancouver, they didn't get a good one either, but they get 2 Canada games. So you go, I'd rather take the 2 Canada games than this slate. No, here's the thing. You know me. I'm Canada's #1 soccer fan. I love Canada soccer. I'm really into it. I'm going to get into the World Cup. I'm going to root for their game.
Guy.
Yeah. Friend of the show. But for the casuals like me that want to tune in for an event like this is not sucking anybody in to want to get downtown to be a part of Ghana, Panama. Like, sorry, ain't happening. Not gonna go down. Not gonna be that way. So it's a bust. It's a bust for the casuals. There's just no doubt about it. And in terms of it feeling like this massive event that's coming to the city, ain't nobody getting hyped for that.
It's still so weird having World Cup here.
I'll tell you right now. I wanted to go to one World Cup game, and if I get free tickets, I'll go to one of those games. But I wouldn't pay $10 to go see Panama, Ghana. Yeah. Like, no shot. I'm not going to go down there to pay for the beers. Period. Like, not happening. Anyway, what's next?
Patio season for me. Do you want to touch on the UFC action from over the weekend?
I got to touch on this. I got to do this. So, just quickly, Petr Yan is the new bantamweight champion of the UFC. His performance against Merab this weekend was unbelievable. That's what you watch UFC for, man. That's what you watch combat sports for. I whenever people are casuals and trying to get into it, I go, man, no, it's the best. Because it's still the sport where people who are hungry and come from anywhere can compete. You don't have to have money. Everywhere has a fight gym. You can get in. You can have a career. Petr Yan fought a guy who is relentless with his pressure, who's this unbelievable Georgian wrestler, and he stuffed takedowns all night long, 5 rounds. Jab was incredible. The cross was incredible. The body kicks were vicious. And he even secured a couple of takedowns, and Merab was beat up, man. Good for Merab surviving that. He wants the immediate rematch. Yan is kind of playing coy with it, but I need that rematch immediately. Like, I don't care what Petr Yan says about making him wait and trying to have him go through the gauntlet. I need it right away again. But, yeah, Petr Yan just entered, like, a completely different echelon. He was already a champ, but now it's a totally different feel. And it's so exciting to have a guy who's not just a pure wrestler. I got to say that, too. Like, a guy who can strike and box the way that he does. Anyway, we'll see you tomorrow.